Thank you very much, my dear brother Patrick, and thanks for your global leadership on this crucially important issue of adaptation. Excellencies, honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen, climate change is having devastating effects in Africa. Droughts, floods, and climate-induced local swarms are devastating farmlands and increasing food insecurity and destroying livelihoods of smallholder farmers, majority of whom are women. Africa loses $7 billion to $15 billion a year to climate change, and this could rise to $50 billion a year by 2040. Let's have no doubt about it. Climate adaptation is Africa's main priority. Yet Africa has very little resources to adapt to climate change, as it receives only 3% of global climate finance. But we are not deterred. The African Development Bank is taking the lead in tackling Africa's climate challenges. We will double our climate finance to $25 billion by 2025, and that will make 40% of our total investments in climate. I'm very pleased that the African Development Bank is the only multilateral development bank to have achieved and exceeded parity for adaptation. We surpassed 50-50 parity between adaptation and mitigation in 2018, and we reached 55% and 63% for climate adaptation in 2019 and 2020, respectively. We are greatly honored by United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres' endorsement of the bank's leadership on climate adaptation in his speech to United Nations General Assembly. We have raised our ambition even further, together with Patrick and former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. The African Development Bank and the Global Center for Adaptation launched the African Adaptation Acceleration Program. Our goal is to raise $25 billion for adaptation. It's the largest, the boldest, and the most transformative climate adaptation ever put forward for Africa. The African Development Bank has committed $12.5 billion of this amount, and we look forward to develop partner countries to help us to deliver on the $12.5 billion balance. This support will have amazing impacts. It will deliver climate advisory services to 30 million farmers and pastoralists. It will support 1 million youth and unlock $3 billion in financing for them. At COP26, just last week Friday, Patrick and I unveiled a $1 million prize for Youth Adapt that was awarded to 10 businesses run by young people on climate adaptation in Africa. And 70% of the winners are women. That's very good, because when women win, Africa wins. To build the voices of young people into Africa's climate adaptation, the African Development Bank and the Global Center for Adaptation is announcing the launch of the African Youth Climate Council. The Council will amplify the voices, the ideas, the innovations, and the businesses of young people on climate in Africa. It will help to increase adaptation finance to over $5 billion a year, including from the private sector. We're already delivering massive impacts for the most vulnerable that Amina, my dear sister, talked about, who are actually the smallholder farmers of Africa. The African Development Bank's Technologies for African Agricultural Transformation, we call it TAAT, has provided 11 million farmers in 29 countries with climate-resilient agricultural technologies, all that in just 2 years. This includes heat-tolerant wheat varieties on 1.8 million hectares in Ethiopia, Sudan, and 6 other countries, areas warming from climate change. And it has supported 5.2 million households now growing drought-tolerant maize on 840,000 hectares in South Africa, in Southern Africa. To support and deliver support for climate adaptation at scale for farmers and to feed Africa in the face of climate change, African heads of state and global leaders agreed to create what's called the Financing Facility for Food Security and Nutrition in Africa. This facility will work within the framework of the African Adaptation Acceleration Program with the aim of raising $1 billion to allow African agriculture to adapt to climate change. The facility will deliver climate-resilient technologies for 40 million farmers and produce an additional 100 million metric tons of food. This will be enough to feed 200 million people and reduce hunger in Africa by 80%. As I close, let me say, the facility's vision can be summarized in our action slogan, 1 for 200, meaning $1 billion to feed 200 million Africans. The African Adaptation Acceleration Program is Africa's bold solution to climate adaptation. Let's show our support for Africa by providing the $12.5 billion needed to meet the financing target for the program. Goodwill, equity, trust, and support are critical. Let's deliver that for Africa. Thank you very much.